Hello, and welcome back to Authentically Shawna. I'm your host, Dr. Shawna Burke. This is part two of our intimacy series. And today I am joined by Laurie Love, who is an intimacy coach and a certified erotic blueprint coach. Welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here, Shawna. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this. So, I think a lot of people don't know what these words are. So, let's start out by talking about what is a certified erotic blueprint coach?
So, my mentor, Jaya, came up with this framework called the Erotic Blueprint Types. And there are 5 different erotic blueprint types, and they are the energetic type, the sensual type, the kinky type, the sexual type, and the shapeshifter type. And this is a framework, like we all have these types, but some of us have a higher leaning, into one of these more than the other. We use these to sort of see how you're wired for pleasure, both mentally and physically. And so each one of these has their own unique characteristics. And so it's really fun to see where we are in this framework, because it better helps us identify how we're wired for pleasure.
Before we dive into that, because we're going to take a deep dive into what all of those 5 different categories are, let's talk about what is intimacy, because I think it's a word that is often misunderstood and we don't have a good definition for it. So tell us, what is intimacy?
Yeah. So intimacy is a deep sense of closeness and connection and vulnerability that's shared between people. And so this can exist in various forms, emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, intellectual intimacy, spiritual intimacy, experiential intimacy. So it covers a lot of different things in our lives. So when we say intimacy, I think most of us think about it when it comes to sex, but it really incorporates a lot of different genres. And at its core, intimacy involves really truly being seen and known and accepted by another person, which requires a lot of trust and open communication and mutual care and respect. And I feel that true intimacy really requires a sense of presence and curiosity and honesty and a willing to be open and receptive.
Which, when I hear that, I hope that all of my relationships are that, right?
Mhm.
No matter who it is. I hope that's with people that I have on my podcast. I hope that's with my neighbor. I hope that's what I have with my friends, my family. Like, I would hope that there's this mutual level of understanding, respect, desire to be seen, desire to be heard. And the same goes both ways. And I think we sometimes forget that that's a part of hopefully all connection to one another, not just in a romantic sense.
Yes, absolutely.
So, with that framework, tell us, what is an intimacy coach?
So, an intimacy coach, as an intimacy coach, I really focus on improving relationships and sexual well being in a very holistic way. So, looking at, I call them like the obstacles or pathways, which are like physical, chemical, emotional, psychological. It incorporates like the entire being. And as an intimacy coach, we're really focused, I'm focused on like what's going on, what do you want, how can you get it, what's standing in your way, and how I can support you. And so that's where I operate from. So it's sort of goal oriented, as to where do you see yourself? What do you really want? And what's stopping you from getting there? This approach really encompasses a lot of education, like practical tools, experiential experiences to enhance your relationship, your connection, and pleasure.
And who doesn't want that?
Yes, don't we all?
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's chat about how this is different from part one, which is Dr. Mala, who is a sex therapist. Let's talk about what the difference between intimacy coaching and sex therapy is.
Yeah. So, one of the main differences is that I can share my personal stories and experiences. Sex therapists are licensed, by the state, and they have certain rules and guidelines. And when you sit down with a therapist, they don't take personal experiences, they don't share personal stories, or at least they haven't in my experience. They will give you like tools and diagnoses and treatment and help. But when being a I feel like I can talk about a whole lot more than a therapist can, because I'm an open book. And so I can share about all the different experiences that I have struggled with, that I've faced, things that I've tried, things that I've done, and I can do it in a way like you're talking to a friend. It's like I just am one step ahead. I just have a little bit more experience, or maybe a lot more experience, in certain situations. And so I can really share from my heart and from my experience.
And let's chat about what that looks like. So you do one-on-one work, you do group work. What does that look like in your practice?
Yeah, so my practice is online and I do one on one coaching with individuals and couples. Whether you're single or in a relationship, I work with everyone, all identities, all genders, I'm totally inclusive. And so I can work with individuals that are single. I can work with individuals that are in partnership, no matter what the lifestyle arrangement is. And I can also work with couples. And if someone's in a coupleship, in a partnership, not both partners don't have to necessarily be involved. I work with, like, I have a client, and the wife, comes to me and we do coaching sessions, and the husband gets the benefit of it. He knows about it, he knows what she's up to, and so he just gets to reap the rewards. So I love that I can assist in so many, in whatever way, shape, and form my clients need me to. Everything's like fully customizable to what you're going through and what you're dealing with, and where you need support.
That's amazing. Let's chat about this, I'm going to call it process that you use to look at what our erotic blueprints are. So let's talk about how you figure out your different erotic blueprints. What does that look like? And then we'll talk about how that affects what happens in a session.
So, the first way that you can find out what your erotic blueprints are is that you can take the quiz. There is a quiz that Jaya developed, and you can go to my website and you can sign up for my email list, and I will send you a link to the quiz. It's a quiz that's 20 questions, and based on how you answer the questions, it can give you your primary erotic blueprint type. I can also give you your pleasure profile. So if you take the free quiz, you'll get your primary erotic blueprint type. If you take the paid quiz, which is $17, and let me tell you, this is the best $17 that you will ever spend on your sex life. It's cheaper than a sex toy, and it gives you so much more pleasure, like a lifetime of pleasure. So if you take that $17 quiz, you'll get a pleasure profile. And this will tell you what percentage you are in each one of these blueprints. Because, like I mentioned earlier, we have all of them. It's just a matter of like what degree, what percentage we are. So we can approach it from our mind by answering these questions. The next way that you can figure out what your erotic blueprint type is from your body. Our bodies don't lie. Our minds have been conditioned to be a certain way based on our gender or identity or cultural norms, right? But our bodies tell a very different story, can tell a very different story. So having the results from your quiz, super helpful, and then testing those quiz results out on your body. And we can get into the intricacies of doing that once I go through all of the different blueprint types. And so the blueprints, the way that we approach it is that there's superpowers for each blueprint, and then there's also shadows for each blueprint. And the superpowers are just like the things that are really awesome about the blueprint. And the shadows are the things that hold you back and block you.
And do you find that you see people mostly for their shadows? That comes up as one of the main, uh, we'll say pain points, or we'll say one of the things that are like, oh, that sounds exactly like what is going on. How did you know?
Yeah. When I first learned about these superpowers and shadows, when I heard the shadows, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I have that one and that one and that one and that one and that one. And like it gave me a clear picture of what was going on, what was blocking me from my pleasure, what was stopping me, where I was hung up, why I had a problem with certain things. And so it really gave me an accurate picture of myself and gave me a place to focus. So I'll let you in on a little secret. The fastest way to change your sex life is to look at your shadows and begin to heal them.
Which I feel like that's probably true in any aspect of our lives, but I feel like sex is such a big microscope.
Yes.
It magnifies it really magnifies everything else that's going on. And it's I think that's one place where you can really say, okay, I'm sure this is showing up in other ways,
Mhm.
but in this way I feel like I can see it, figure it out. And now I have a way to transform what my shadow is.
Absolutely. My recommendation is always to like start with an easy shadow. You know, we have like, there's levels and grades of them, and some of those
Mm,
shadows we don't want to look at, and that's okay,
yeah.
for now. Some of those shadows need, like deep healing and deep, deep trauma work, but other shadows can be very simple. And just like the awareness that you have it, you can then start to take like really baby steps to transforming things in your relationship. And then like you said, that like touches all different areas and aspects of your life. So it doesn't have to be difficult or hard or scary. It's just bringing awareness to it.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that because I think so much of the time when we think, oh, we're doing shadow work, it's like it's going to be this grueling, daunting process where you're in the darkest depths of your soul and you're crying for hours in your room. Like it does not, that is a version of it,
Yes.
but it does not have to be the only version of it.
Yes. Correct.
Yay, there's hope. Okay, let's start talking about the 5 different blueprints.
Yes. So the energetic blueprint is the one that I love to start with. So the energetic is all about energy. We are made up of energy. There's energy around us. We interact with energy constantly. So the energetic blueprint is very, very, very sensitive energetically and physically and emotionally, which means that you can like pick up things from other people and places and things that like you might not be aware of. Like nobody ever tells us we're energetic beings when we're a kid and that we're being bombarded, but there are some kids that I know that are very energetically sensitive and like doing clearing work, learning about energy and moving energy and kind of protecting yourself from energy is a huge thing that we need to be aware of as human beings. And so as energetic beings, like you have the ability as a superpower, as an energetic, to connect very deeply on a spiritual or an emotional level. These people, this blueprint is all about like intuition and feeling things out and sensing things. So these are people who kind of have like spidey senses. So they can be very in tune with their partner. Like they know when something's wrong or they know when something's off, or if they're bombarded too much in their day by other people's energy, like they need to have practices that help them clear, cleanse, relax, release. And what's really cool about the energetic blueprint is that arousal can start way before any physical connection or touch happens. Like space is really hot to the
Mm.
energetic blueprint. Like they need a lot of space. They can have orgasms without even being touched. It's amazing because they are that energetically sensitive. And I've seen it and I've experienced it, and it is possible. And it is something that can be developed, which is amazing.
Do you want to tell us the shadow of that, or do you want to do
Yes.
that? And yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like
I
we
was
should.
going to ask you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's shadow it.
Yeah. So the shadow of the energetic blueprint is that because you are hypersensitive, this can cause you to short circuit if you're touched too fast or too soon, or you're bombarded with too many people's energy. You're in a big public space, or you've been dealing with a bunch of people at work all the time, whatever it is. This can short circuit you and completely shut you down. Because you have spidey senses, if something's off with your partner, you can feel it. And then you're like, hey, something's not quite right. And so you are like a big antenna and can get very overwhelmed and bombarded with other people's, energy and being in environments. Your partners might think you need too much space,
Mm.
and they might take that like as a sign of like, oh, you don't love me or you don't want me.
Rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they just don't understand. That's a big one. And another really big one is that energetics frequently have difficulty with their own boundaries because, due to your empathetic nature and being so in tune with other people, you might fear hurting somebody's feelings by speaking up for what you want. And so the energetic will override our own boundaries. We'll go into people pleasing. And then over time, this creates resentment and sensitivity in the body. And then we need more space, and then we need to heal from that.
It becomes a cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. And there can be trauma that happens from overriding your boundaries, and then a lot of self-judgment and rejection and on and on and on. This can lead to like disassociation during sex or intimacy because you're not being fully authentic.
And it's too
Not,
much. It just feels
it's way too
too
much.
much. So
Yeah.
so I took the quiz, and this is my primary. This sounds so much. I feel like a lot of female characters that we see on television and movies are this because I'm like trying to think of a good example, but I'm blanking. But I just feel like I've seen this so many times where there's a female in a relationship and she just needs some space and it's viewed as a rejection that she doesn't want to be with her partner. But it's just this I need to recollect myself
Mhm.
before I can be a partnership. I need to recollect me and figure out like what's mine, what's other people's, and
Yes,
sort myself out before I can like bring it back
very much
to
so.
a two-person relationship.
Most definitely. Yeah. Any people pleaser that you see
Which I feel like is
probably,
so many
which
characters that we
is
see on
mhm,
television. I think it's a very I'm gonna say feminine trait. I think that's
mhm.
a lot of our social conditioning as well is to say yes.
Yeah.
Someone wants something from us, we say yes. We no matter what
I
if
s
that's in whatever variation of relationships are,
yeah.
whether that's parent or friends or
Mhm.
work.
I see it with men too.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they
absolutely.
just wanna please,
Absolutely.
they wanna show up for their women and they wanna be supportive or they wanna show up for their partners,
Yeah.
but they just give, give, give too much and don't take enough time to care for themselves. That's the energetic aspect, yeah.
Yeah, that's the shadow of
Mhm.
energetic. Yeah, I can absolutely see that.
Yeah. Energetics need a lot of safety in their
Yeah.
intimacy and their sexual encounters, and so that takes time, and some partners, like, wanna go straight there and not take the time, but the time and the space is huge, is the most powerful. The presence, time, and space.
I love that. I do think I think this is probably also like part of our culture is like we think if there's not this like fire instantly that like something is wrong. And I don't know. I don't know anyone who I've been in any sort of whether friendship or relationship where when it didn't take time to build that it lasts. Like
Mhm.
when things just kind of blow, it's like, well, that was just like a two of our force fields just
Mhm.
like really banging into each other as opposed to like allowing that to develop over time and inside jokes and like when you
Mhm.
have that maturation of a relationship, I think that's such a different quality.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Sure, you got an instant flame, but it's going to
Right.
burn out really fast if
Right.
there's like no wood,
No
tinder,
subs
no big log there. So it's like the difference of, between like having a fire that's sustainable and like smoldering, and that takes time. And
totally. A smolder. That's a word that we need to bring back more, like the
yes,
good smolder.
absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to our
Yeah.
second
So the sensual
blueprint.
blueprint. Yeah, let's talk about the sensual. So the sensual blueprint loves their world to be rich in sensuality. So this is all about the five senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, everything that delights your senses. The sensual blueprint has this aesthetic for beauty and this knack for creating a sensual space. So they are the ones that like will walk into a room and be like, "Oh, I love those pillows and I love the artwork and look at these candles." And they're the ones that really love to like set up that sensual space that you see
Mm,
like in the movies, like with the bath and the candlelight and the oils. It feeds them.
mm,
It's something that needs to be there in order for them to like drop in. Music is super important, like into
mm,
my sensual blueprint, because it sets a mood, it sets a tone, it changes my energy. It makes me feel different ways. Sensual blueprint has like when you're able to drop into your body, you have intense awareness, from like the top of your head all the way down to your little toe. Sensuals have this amazing capacity for pleasure because like everything can be pleasurable to them.
mm.
Orgasms can be a multisensory experience. Like you can have an orgasm from just getting into a hot bathtub, which I do every single time I get into a hot bathtub. You can have an orgasm from, tasting like the most deliciously, perfectly ripe fruit. It's that moment where you close your eyes and your eyes roll back up in your head. Like there's so many different ways that the sensual blueprint can experience orgasm. It's not just genital focused or,
Mm.
yeah. It can happen so many different ways. When a sensual blueprint is relaxed, you can indulge all day long, and it's all about the journey with no destination in mind because it's all about being in pleasure. So the sensual blueprint is focused much more on pleasure than they are on penetration and and things like that.
Which makes a big deal if you know that or not.
Yes. So they need more, when we talk about foreplay, like foreplay is just sensual sex, and it's absolutely key and necessary for the sensual blueprint before engage or going into the next step. If that's not there, then it's just like going through the motions, and which makes the sensual very unhappy because they don't want to go through the motions. It's not about that. No, it's about the journey. It's about experiencing pleasure from everything that's around you.
And do you think there's a way to like frame that and set that up for a partner and say like, this is what I need? Can you help me set this up so that when we're having intimacy, this is already a part of that?
Yes, you tell your partner, I love this song. I love when you buy me whatever kind of food. I love when we get to order in. I love this restaurant. I love when you buy me flowers, or I love picking out flowers. Like you can communicate it to your partner, but you can also set it up for yourself, as a sensual. Like one of the things that really tripped me up before I learned about the erotic blueprints is that I expected my partner to do everything. And I expected them to read my mind. And that's one of the I'm getting into the shadow aspects of the sensual blueprint already a little bit. And I expected that it should be this way without telling my partner. And so one of the ways that I really expanded in this blueprint is that I started doing it for myself. I started drawing myself hot baths. I started buying more candles. I started playing music. I started, putting together playlists on Spotify of the things that I liked. I started caring more about my body. I started dressing more, in ways that felt really, really good to me, that felt sensual, that felt pleasurable, that felt delightful. I began to pay more attention to them.
And this is a little like off the topic, but when we have our main blueprint, can you develop the other ones up and down?
Yes, most definitely. Because you have a primary blueprint, but then you also have a secondary blueprint. And we all have all of them. So you have all five. And so it's just a matter of recognizing what your primary is and communicating that, and then seeing what your secondary is and knowing what your partner's secondary, what their primary and secondary is. And then, yes, you can expand into all of the other blueprints. Absolutely. And we can talk about expansion. Yeah.
Oh, I'd like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most definitely.
Okay. We'll put a pin in it. We'll come back.
Exactly. Cool. So the sensual shadows, getting out of your head and into your body. Sensuals are all up in their heads. Laundry list, to-do list, everything that happened today, everything that's going on around me. Very hard to actually drop into your body. And so when we talk about sensual, like when you think about a sensual massage, yes, touch is very, very important to get the sensuals in their body, because mind just runs away with all kinds of distracting thoughts and can totally take you out of the bedroom. Sensual blueprint can seem incredibly picky and easily thrown off when conditions aren't perfect. So that can look like walking into a hotel room and being like, I don't like where that lamp is. I don't like how the furniture is organized. I don't like that picture on the wall, and then that being the focus and that being, the thing that takes you out of pleasure, and that being the block and the distraction, in cases like that. Like when I walk into a hotel room, I'll rearrange the furniture so that it pleases me, so that then I don't have to think about it. And if there's a picture on the wall that I don't like, if I can take it down, I will, or I'll move them around, or I'll hang something over it, So knowing these things that could throw me off, I have found different ways in my healing process to take care of myself, because that's what it's really all about, is self-care. Knowing all of this information about yourself is huge, because then you know how you want to be treated, and you can teach other people how you want to be treated.
And if you know yourself well, then it's so much easier to communicate. Because I think when you don't know yourself well, then you're kind of giving someone like this garbled information, garble soup.
That was me in my relationship. Yeah, you said it beautifully. I didn't know what it was that I needed or wanted, and so I just got really frustrated. And it was like my partner couldn't get it right. Everything that they did was wrong, because I didn't even really know what it was that I needed to ask for or what it was that I wanted, you know? So, yeah, knowing this about me, I'm like, okay, specifics, sensuals, love specifics, having conversations. Yeah, like you said, knowing yourself.
And having conversations, Dr. Mel and I talked about this, but outside of intimate moments, right? Like having those
Mhm.
conversations in intimate moments sometimes is not a
Yeah.
good combo. It's like, okay, we need to do this not while
Yeah.
we're being intimate. Pin in it, come back, regroup,
Yeah.
chat about it.
A lot of times we're like, it just needs to happen and it's all just going to unfold this way. And like, I love something that Jaya says. She's like, plan for spontaneity.
Mm,
You know, we expect spontaneity.
right.
Well, if you plan for spontaneity, you're going to be a heck of a lot more successful when that spontaneity happens, you know, or when you schedule that time for the spontaneity to happen. You know, we kind of have this like dream fantasy that like this is just the way that it should be because that's like what we see in the movies or that's what we want to happen. Well, you know, preemptively, like taking self responsibility just makes sex so much hotter. Yeah. And so having those conversations outside of the intimate moment so that it doesn't come across as like criticism or being picky or, you know, throwing somebody else off or out of the blue. It's like you set yourself up for success when you have the conversations ahead of time.
Or afterwards, or
Yeah. And then
hey,
debrief,
yeah,
you
let's
know,
debrief.
aftercare, like
Totally.
aftercare debrief, you know, all of that is hugely important because you can be like, oh, I really love this. And, you know, I prefer not to have this. You know, there really are nice ways to say, to give criticism, like compliment sandwich, you know, give a compliment. Oh, darling, I really loved when you did that. I wasn't really crazy about this. And oh my gosh, can we do that other thing again? You know, it's like, there are ways that we can communicate that that don't come across, you know,
Is
hurtful.
Do you have a good tip for how to start bringing this up? Like if you've been with someone for a long time, or even if it's someone that you're with new and you haven't had these
Yeah.
conversations, do you have, which I think this is, everything's an icebreaker, right? So how do you recommend people start bringing this up?
I say, oh my gosh, I took this erotic blueprint quiz. Have you ever heard of the erotic blueprints? I took this quiz and I found out what my erotic profile is. And oh my gosh, like I had no idea about these things about myself. And I learned da 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 da, you know, and say, hey, like here's the quiz link. I would love to see what your erotic blueprint profile is. And that's a great conversation starter.
I love that. Oh,
I
it's data.
Yeah, it's data. I tell all my single clients who are doing online dating to put the erotic blueprints in their profile.
How?
By taking the quiz and saying, if you've ever heard of the erotic blueprints or if you're interested, you know, like people have love languages, right? You like you've heard of the love
Yes.
languages. People
Yes.
say that like the erotic blueprint framework is like the love languages, but for sex and sexuality and intimacy. And so you can put in your profile, like, you know, my love languages are and list them. And my erotic blueprint profile is this. And if you're interested, and this is such a good icebreaker. And if you're interested to hear more, if you don't know about the erotic blueprints and you're interested in learning more, contact me. Like that's a really good opener because then somebody can reach out and be like, wow, I read your profile and like, I'm intrigued.
What does that
What
mean?
are these? Or they'll go Google it and they'll find Jaya's site and they'll find the quiz and they'll take the quiz and then you've got like a common foundation. You have a common language because that's what this is all about. This framework is about having a common language so that you understand yourself and you understand your partner better so that you can communicate.
That's amazing.
It's like one partner speaking French and the other one speaking, you know,
Italian.
Japanese. I was going to say Italian, but I'm like,
They're kind of
they're
similar.
too close. They might understand each other just fine. Yeah. But that's what these are. These are, you know, the erotic blueprints are languages. And so by learning what our language, you know, by learning our language, it's like being able to speak English better, being able to articulate ourselves better, and then having our partner be able to speak our language. Yeah.
Amazing. Should we
So
move
yeah.
on to number 3? Did you have anything else to say about number 2?
Well, the sensual blueprints, there's a couple more that I wanted to talk
Please.
about because actually there's just one more that I wanted to talk about because this was a big one for me. Like the sensual shadow, like sensual blueprint shadow does not like a mess. So messy places, messy apartments, messy bedrooms, like laundry not being done, like is very like takes you out of pleasure. So if you really want to create a romantic setting and like I was saying, plan for spontaneity, like tidy up your room, make your bed, do your laundry, have the laundry done for your partner. There are these like awesome ways to like create an environment and a space that is conducive for really hot sex and intimacy.
Yeah, no one wants like stinky socks on the floor.
No, nobody wants to complain about, oh, didn't pick up their underwear,
Yeah,
or having to do the laundry. Yeah.
right.
hmm Things like that. So, yeah, let's go to the sexual blueprint.
Okay.
We'll do that one next. So the sexual blueprint superpowers, like the sexual blueprint is what you think of as sex. And so it's all about like sexual blueprint love sex. They love orgasms. They love genitals. They love nudity. They love nakedness. They love all things sex. All right. And being able to indulge in them makes everything in life feel right. So with the sexual blueprint, when they want to relax, sex is a way for them to unwind and feel at ease and relieve tension. The sensual blueprint needs to relax in order to have sex.
Which is the exact opposite.
Exact opposite. So just knowing that information in a partnership, huge. My partner needs to have sex to relax. Oh, my partner needs to relax before we have sex. Like that mismatch can then bring you closer together.
And if you know that, if you go in knowing that and you're not upset with your partner for not having the same
Mm-hmm.
blueprint as
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, because like we find that like kind of opposites attract because it creates polarity. We
Mm.
love that polarity is the thing that like makes for really hot, juicy sex. And without that polarity, it's just kind of boring. Like if two people are the same blueprint, sure, it could be hot at first when all those happy hormones are going on. But then it kind of like you're doing the same thing all the time. You're doing it in the same way. If you're the same blueprint, like can you imagine two energetic blueprints like having sex in the energetic? It'd just be a lot of like space and time and maybe no touch, and it's like, okay, you're like,
How do we move on? Yeah.
yeah, how do we move
Yeah. How
past,
do we move it?
to the next,
Yeah.
the next phase, the next stage, or,
Yeah.
expand into the sexual blueprint? Because ultimately, like we all want to have sex in the sexual blueprint like in some way, shape, or form, like our idea of sex is penetration, right? And so yes, that's the sexual blueprint definition of sex. But there are other ways to have sex. And there are other ways to explore. And we'll cover that in the sexual shadows. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So what's really cool about the sexual blueprint too is that they're really fun to play with because like when a sexual blueprint is like owns it, they are like fully in their joy and like unashamed pleasure. Like everything is good, everything is hot, everything is just like a turn on, right? They're not up in their head. They are fully in their bodies. And so that's why it's like so easy for them to go from 0 to 60 so quickly because they're so easy to arouse and they're eager to get going and they're so easy to please. Oh my gosh, so easy to please. So, partners, if you have a sexual blueprint partner, yeah, it can be challenging and it's also like you're really lucky because you know what they want and they're kind of simple, and straightforward, and so you don't have to like spend a lot of energy like figuring it out, which is a huge blessing. It is for me. I am so grateful for that.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. Um the thing about the sexual blueprint is that like they really want that orgasm and that climax of sexual play. That is really, really important to them. And, when they're like fully awakened in their power, they can reach climax very, very easily. Whereas like an energetic, it's a little more difficult. Sensual, a little more difficult. The sexual is just like I said, so easy. So yeah, those are some of the superpowers. Some of the shadows of the sexual blueprint is that they get way too focused on that end goal of the climax, the orgasm, the penetration. And like that's where they want to go. And that's the journey and the focus and the destination. And so they like miss the journey. They can like forget about all the other things, they forget about the space and the time and this and all of the pleasure
The build up.
senses, the anticipation, exactly, the polarity. They're like, hey, let's just get it on. The sexual blueprint might feel really upset if like orgasm doesn't happen or lubrication doesn't happen or engorgement doesn't happen. Oh, I didn't get hard. Oh, she didn't get wet. We failed, you know. It's if it doesn't like yeah, there's this sense of like we didn't do it right or it wasn't successful, you know, whereas like the sensual blueprints like I don't need an orgasm. Oh my god, I'm in so much pleasure, you know, and rapture all over my body. And so, you know, the sexual blueprint like kind of taking redefining what sex is and what sex means is really important for the sexual blueprint, kind of showing the sexual blueprint that there is more to it than just that. Yeah, sometimes the sexual blueprint can be like super self focused and like totally clueless about what their lover needs from them because they're just like, hey, this is what we do and this is how we do it. And it's, you know, all genital focused. And it's like, forget about all the other erogenous zones and all the other you know, ways to feel and experience pleasure. Most sexuals like have a very limited definition of sex because they don't know. They haven't been taught. Like none of us, because we don't talk about this stuff enough.
No.
And that's why we're talking about it now.
Absolutely.
I love it. Yeah. So, you know, this is like this shadow is where like the porn addictions come into play because they're very, you know, focused on like visual stimulation and feeling that arousal and getting that to that arousal very quickly. And so, you know, there can be a lot of like shame that comes, you know, with this as well, because like, especially for women who have a high sexual blueprint, oh my gosh, the slut shaming that happens, you know, it's incredible. Like this, the sexual blueprint is, it's not easy in society. We kind of think it is, but it's not. Like, I feel like it's judged a lot.
I would say probably more for females than
Yes.
males because I feel like like my brain's kind of like tickering away of thinking like a lot of movies we see. I think a lot of males are portrayed as this blueprint, but we don't really see a lot of females
Yeah.
portrayed in this
Oh, it's
blueprint.
okay if men go out and have sex with like, you know, like lots and lots of women, but it's
Right.
not okay for women to do the same thing. So
Right.
yeah, it's there's definitely a stereotype and judgment for sure. And so it's tough. It can be really tough. And then for men too, like to expect to be sexual. Oh, because he's a man, he needs to be hard and it has to be this way. And,
Right.
you know, and so having that like societal expectation too is really difficult. I've seen that there are a lot of sensual and energetic men out there who have this mask of the sexual blueprint that they feel that they have to be this way because they're a man when they are actually energetic or they are highly sensual. And so, you know, having this information is really, really key because like that mask can then come off.
Right.
You can put down that mask.
Right.
And
And you don't need to tell anyone, right? Like
Mm-mm.
you just need to tell your partner. No one else
Yeah.
needs to know.
Yeah.
That's just between you and your partner. It's
Yeah.
not like you have to walk around and pretend like I need to be this version of me that I'm not.
A lot of erectile dysfunction, I feel, comes from like the shame of like not being able to perform when it's like they're actually energetics and sensuals. And so there's all this performance anxiety that's going on because they feel like they have to, because they're failing, because they're not a man, you know? And so I've seen a lot of really great healing and transformation and like liberation and authenticity come from knowing what your erotic blueprints are.
Yeah. And I can imagine there's also, because like from a pelvic PT perspective, I've heard a lot of women, they're faking it. They are not enjoying what's going on. And it's and again, I'm hearing stories secondhand, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not there. It sounds more to me like their partner probably has this blueprint and they feel like if they're not faking it because this is the expected outcome, then they're failing in bed because they aren't meeting their partner's needs that they can't. So then they have pelvic floor dysfunction because now they're trying to force their body to do something that it doesn't want to be doing.
They're overriding their boundaries. They're not communicating because they don't know themselves. They're putting on these expectations
Right.
that are completely not in alignment with who they are.
And it shows
And
up
how
in the
they're-
body. You can't
Yeah.
keep pushing that
Your
down.
body
I wish you could
doesn't
sometimes.
lie. Your body doesn't lie.
It does not. It
Mm-mm.
doesn't. And so then you wind up thinking, oh, I have this disorder. I have this issue. And maybe you do, but I think a lot of it is not understanding that this is also a big part of it.
All right, next is the Kinky Blueprint. Oh, and I love the Kinky Blueprint so much. So, the great things about the Kinky Blueprint are that they can reach heights of like turn on and pleasure and orgasm simply from playing in the mind. So, this is all about like fantasy and power dynamics and sexual games. So, the Kinky Blueprint is all about what is taboo to you specifically.
Okay.
That's all that it's about. There is a whole range and spectrum. And so when we hear the word kinky, most minds go to like, oh, BDSM and power, dom submissive and, being tied up and whipped and all that. It can be that. And it can also be as simple as like no premarital sex. Premarital sex is taboo. Don't have sex before you get married. Don't have sex with somebody unless you love them, right? Or don't have sex, like whatever rule has been established for you. And then that becomes taboo. I'm not supposed to have premarital sex. And so that becomes hotter. It's like, telling somebody, like telling a kid, don't drink, right? Like, what are they going to do?
Party.
Yeah, exactly. And so, same thing with sex. It's like you tell kids not to have sex. They're going to have sex. Like everybody's having sex. We all have sex. We're made to have sex. We're all here because of sex. It's called procreation, everyone. And it's okay. And it's healthy. And it's fun. And like the Kinky Blueprint, like is incredibly creative when it comes to sex. Like sex doesn't even need to involve penetration it doesn't even need intercourse. Like Kinky Blueprint, you can totally like access like peak erotic states in so many different ways of touch, and mental stimulation. Like the penetration, okay, maybe that could happen, but it's not necessary. A lot of people who go and see dominance, like doms are not, sex, like they're not prostitutes, right? It's their rules. It's all about what their pleasure is. It's about finding a common ground in consent and playing in that and having fun with it. And that's what the Kinky Blueprint is all about. What is taboo in society? What's naughty and novel? And then playing in that consensually, not overriding anybody's boundaries, not traumatizing anybody. It's all about being creative and being seen, like creating that intimacy that we're talking about. I find that the Kinky Blueprint is the best at communicating.
Interesting.
Because if you are well versed in the kinky realm, it's all about communication. You have conversations ahead of time. Like, when we talk about like safe words and, like the kinky checklist. So I have a sex communication checklist that I offer to all my clients. And like, that's one of the tools that I've like couples use. You had asked a question earlier about like things to, like helpful things.
Yeah.
The sex communication checklist is a checklist that has ways to have sex in each one of the erotic blueprints. And it has like a willing to column, a want to, and a don't want to. And so you fill that out and your partner fills that out, and then you see where you connect. And then that gives you a lot of really great talking points. And so in the kinky realm, the checklist is like so long. I mean, like, I think I've seen it like 20 pages long because it covers like literally every little detail of something that somebody could do to you or that you would want done to you. I mean, at minute levels of detail, because it's really important. Consent is really, really important. And so saying that you're okay with this and you're okay with this and you're not okay with this, because it's when that consent lines cross, that's when trauma happens. And so like the kinky people who play safely in the kinky realm, there's tons of communication ahead of time.
It sounds like the rest of us could learn a lot from that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I couldn't even think of a list of 20 pages worth of things to ask.
Yeah. And when I see it, when I look through it, I'm like, holy crap, this is great.
Yeah.
Because there's the element, remember how I was talking about plan for spontaneity? So filling out that checklist is planning. And then the scene, and the container, the kinky container is the spontaneity. Okay, you've told somebody what you are okay with. Now you don't know what they're going to do to you because you don't know what they're okay with, but you've given your okays, and so they're going to pick from your okays, and then they're going to surprise you. And so that can be really, really, really fun.
That sounds like fun for anyone.
Yeah, so there is definitely a lot to be learned, from the kinky blueprint. Yeah. And I was just at a meeting a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago with different people, in the field of sexuality. And we had a speaker talking about the chemical receptors in our brains and how we're wired and how in like the kinky realm, there are some people who like intense sensation and even pain, they're wired differently. And like intense sensation is actually highly pleasurable.
Right.
And pain can actually be highly pleasurable because their pain receptors are different than most of us. And so, I just found it like really interesting, like the whole chemical cocktail, when it comes to, playing in this land. It's amazing.
Well, I think that kind of sounds like a massage too, a lot of times, right? Massages sometimes are pretty almost painful, but it also feels pleasurable.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, ow, that is a very sore spot, but please keep going because I know it's going to feel good when you're done.
Yeah, because there's a release that
For
happens.
sure.
Yeah, yeah, and our bodies like react to how we're touched, whether it's deep tissue massage or with a crop. Love it. I absolutely absolutely love it. And there is a lot of deep healing that happens in the kinky container.
Yeah,
You know,
I can imagine so.
yeah, because in that like secretive nature, of kind of the shadow, getting into the shadows of the kinkies, like, yeah, when you have taboo, it becomes a secret, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of like shame and guilt and judgment around it.
Mm,
You don't want to tell anybody,
right.
because you don't want to be, put down, teased, degraded, whatever. I mean, unless degrading's your thing, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, those feelings of, not being seen,
Yeah.
not being able to be your authentic self around someone because, you like fear of getting found out or fear of judgment, it can really disconnect you from intimacy and also can lead to like deep neurosis, about like what
Mhm.
your turn-ons are. And so, some of the things that happen in the kinky realm is that like you find something that works for you and then like you go to that. It's kind of like the sexual blueprint too. Like I want to feel this, and so therefore I've figured out, the formula of how to get there, right?
Right.
And so, even though kinkies are really creative, like they can go, "Oh, I experienced that. I got that cocktail of all the, the dump of the chemicals and the hormones, and so I want to repeat that and I want to go there." And so then it just becomes like repeating the same pattern over and over and over again,
Right.
which then just kind of deeply ingrains it. And so, just realizing this about like this can happen. It's an important thing to know. Like in the kinky realm, you can really put yourself in danger if you are not properly educated on the safety aspects of playing on the edgier sides of the kink realm. And so, like that checklist that I was talking about, hugely important: communication, consent, proper technique, being trustworthy people to
Right.
learn from and to practice with. I remember when 50 Shades of Grey came out, everybody was, oh my God, all over that, right? And that there are DOMs out there who are not educated enough and don't have the proper safety, and, they put themselves out there that they're these DOMs, both men and women, and they just don't get it. Like they think it's supposed to be this way,
Right.
and if they act this way, that's going to be the big turn on, but it's not. It's like every single individual is an individual with different and specific, unique turn ons and wants and desires and needs. And so learning, like it's again, learning the language of the kinky person that you're playing with. Super, super important, there's a lot that can be experienced. There's because of these chemicals and hormones and, there can be something called like top drop or sub drop. And that's where you have like a really positive experience. And then you feel great for like days or a week, and then you feel like shit.
Mhm.
And like, so aftercare is really, really important. We talked about debrief, after having sex, like whatever blueprint you're in, like having a little conversation afterwards and having some aftercare of, hey, what did you like? And what was great and what worked and what didn't work and what would you like to do again? Or just simply space, time, holding, presence. We were talking about that with intimacy. That's what intimacy is having that care and that respect for the other person. It not being just like, oh yeah, okay, I orgasmed, I'm done. Far too often, that's what bad sex is a lack of communication.
Yeah. Just there's not a tie up at the end, right? There's not a okay,
Mhm.
there's not a completion.
Yeah.
It's just like we're done.
It's and like for me, sex, I want it to be a win-win situation. Don't we all?
Absolutely.
I mean, some, like most of us who care about our partners, it's so much hotter when it's a win-win situation. And, yeah, in my story, in my history, like just going through the motions, is what brought me and led me to becoming an erotic blueprint coach and becoming an intimacy coach, is because I was struggling with this in my relationship. And because we have opposite blueprints, and we are learning each other's blueprints, and we're learning to expand and speak each other's language. And so,
Yeah,
that's the way forward.
I wonder, like, do you think as you've learned more about your partner, does that change intimacy? Like,
Yes.
how much has that deepened your level of awareness of your partner, of yourself as you've gone on this journey together?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it has made our relationship more intimate. It's made our friendship stronger. I had one foot out the door.
Mm.
I had been with my partner for 7 years, and I was completely sexually unsatisfied because he is a sexual blueprint and I am a kinky energetic with psychological kink. I said that wrong. I am an energetic sensual who likes psychological kink. Sorry, I've been in the kinky blueprint. And so,
World.
like, I'm like, yes, I'm kinky, kinky, kinky. Yes, I am. But I'm an energetic, sensual, kinky. And he's a sexual. And so we are opposite. And energetic and kinky were the lowest percentages on his quiz, and sexual and shapeshifter were the lowest on mine. And so, yeah, we're totally opposite. Like I said, opposites attract. Like, we have a tendency to like want to connect with people who are different than us so that we do expand, so that we learn and we grow. But we don't realize that. And then we start blaming ourselves, criticizing ourselves, or blaming our partner, because like all we want to do is be intimate and connect. But we haven't been educated and we haven't talked about it enough. And so I love, love, love talking about it because it just opens up this whole world. And so through learning about it, so learning about my superpowers and my shadows, and learning about my partner's superpowers and shadows, like we now speak each other's language. And so our intimacy and our sex looks a little different, and sometimes a lot different depending on, our mood and timing and all that stuff. But it's really like I have so much less judgment and criticism about my partner. Because, like I was saying, in the sensual blueprint, like being really picky, being easily thrown off, feeling like my partner could never get it right, wanting him to read my mind. Those were all of my shadows. So I am very well versed, in healing those and what to do about it. Because I find that's a lot of our hangups. And celebrating him and his sexuality, and being grateful, like I was saying, for him being so easy, him not being complicated and not having to figure it out, but also being really grateful for him being willing to learn my languages. Because it it definitely makes it much more fulfilling when your partner wants to meet you, and has the willingness to meet you and to be there. You don't necessarily like, if that doesn't happen and you still love your partner, like that's okay, because as long as you know it about yourself, and you like if he didn't like, so I did all kinds of training, and I've taken the erotic blueprint breakthrough course, and I've studied this, and I've become a coach. My partner has not. No, my partner has a 9 to 5 job, and he does show up at events with me. He did take the quiz. He is willing and he does try. But he doesn't go into it in the same level of depth that I do. And that's okay. Like, he doesn't have to, because I reap the rewards and the benefits of me knowing this knowledge about myself, and then I can share it with him and I can educate him about it. And so he doesn't have to. And so, I always tell people it only takes one.
Mm.
And if you really love your partner and you're really dedicated to them and they're really dedicated to you, then, like, then there is hope, and there is a way for you to expand, and there's a way for your partner to expand too. They might just not do it in the same way that you do it, and that's okay.
And I'm sure that changes your dynamic outside of the bedroom.
Mhm.
If you respect each other and you understand each other in this way, I'm sure that changes all aspects of your relationship.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, because, like, I created this guide called Fizzle to Sizzle, and it's all about how to, take a relationship. Like, I put the top 5 things that I did in my relationship to take it from having one foot out the door and feeling like I needed to leave my partner and I needed a new lover and that our relationship was not going to make it,
Right.
to now being together 23 years. And so, for doing this work, I've been doing this work for 15 years. The blueprint's been around for a little over 10 years. But just by focusing on this, like, I feel so much more connected to my partner. I feel so much more intimate with him. We've always been like best friends, and we've always had a high level of respect for each other, but we just didn't understand each other fully and completely. And now I'm learning new stuff about him all the time. And with him expanding, like, when he took the quiz, I said that, sexual was his highest and energetic was his lowest. Well, he retook the quiz, just within the last couple of years, and now he's a shapeshifter. We haven't gotten a shapeshifter yet. There's shape. I've been teasing that one, but now he's a shapeshifter, and which means that he can play in all of the blueprints,
Which is amazing.
which is incredible because guess what? The shapeshifter superpowers are that they can become extraordinary lovers because they are fluent in all of the erotic blueprint types, and they have a huge capacity to be in pleasure. And so that goes along with, like, the sexual blueprint, and the sensual blueprint. And, like, they're never boring because they've learned these languages, and now they speak multiple languages. So it's like they can, in any way that you want to show up and anything that you need, you can be like, okay, tonight I need more energetic, or today I'm feeling really kinky. They're like, oh, okay, I can play in
Great.
that. Great. Awesome. Beautiful. And so it's like, and they have access to all of the superpowers of all of the blueprints. So, how
Mm.
freaking incredible is that? It's amazing. So these are the shapeshifters, like, the just sort of defining, like, if you're like, okay, well, we have all these different blueprints, what really makes a shapeshifter a shapeshifter? I would have to sum it up to, like, these are the people who want it all and they want more of it. So these people have been told, like, they're too complex, or they're too needy, or they're, like, too much. It's because they have this huge capacity and they like to play in all these different, ways. Some of the shadows that the shapeshifter blueprint has is that they're often starving as a shapeshifter, because if you have a sexual partner, you're going to be having sex in the sexual blueprint. If you have an energetic partner, you're going to be having energetic sex. So,
Mm.
like, not being fed in all of the blueprints really makes them, like, kind of shrivel up. And they're shape-shifting to please other partners too. So again, kind of going back to, like, they have the superpowers of all of the blueprints, but they also have the shadows of all of they can have some of the shadows of all the other blueprints too. And so having shapeshifters be fed the way they need to be fed in the moment that they need, because the thing about shapeshifters is that, like, sometimes, they change all the time. And so it's like, okay, 1 hour they might want this, and the
Mm.
next hour they want that. Or yesterday we tried this and that worked really well, but today it's not working so well, because it's like a stream that's just ever changing and undulating.
Which
And
I can imagine if you didn't know this about your partner, would be really frustrating.
oh, yes, extremely. And if you didn't know about yourself, it's really frustrating,
Right.
because you're like, wait a minute, wait,
Yesterday,
yeah. And so, totally frustrating, totally confusing. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
and probably confusing to your partner because they're like, well, I did this thing yesterday and you loved it. And now you're telling me no.
Yes. Yep. Because it changes constantly. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, is there anything else about the 5 that you wanna say before we, like, wrap up chat?
I think I've covered everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any specific questions about any of it?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about body mapping and
Yes.
understanding touch as our body's language, and I know you were also at Dr. Mala's
Yes.
and talking about touch, and we were doing hand massage, which
Mhm.
was not sexual. This was just like, hey, we're practicing touching. If you missed that, we went to Dr. Ma's course and we were talking about how to ask for what we want and what that looks like and how to say we want more of this, less of this. And we were doing that using hand massage with partners who were strangers to us, which is really fun. Well, how do you coach people or what do you talk about in terms of like body? Because body is such an important aspect of intimacy and how do we know what feels good to us? And I think sometimes I often hear this advice, which sometimes I'm like, this is fine advice, but I think it's very different from you touching your own body versus somebody else touching your own body. Like those to me feel very differently. Like if I'm going to get a massage, right? It feels very different. Like it feels very different from if I'm at home doing my own self massage. Same thing
Yes.
with intimacy. Like it feels very different if I'm doing it myself or if I'm doing it with
Yes.
somebody else. Like those 2 things feel very different. And I just hear this advice a lot is like if you know your own body, then you know what to ask for. But I'm like, to me, those are very different things. They're not the same.
Yeah. The way that you self pleasure is different than the way that you want to be intimate with a partner
Absolutely.
because you can self pleasure. And so you don't need them to do the same thing
Right.
that you can do yourself. You're looking for something different. So, what I love about body mapping, so body mapping is identifying different places on your body that feel good. And so, like when I do body mapping, when I guide clients through a body mapping session, and yes, yeah, we can do this online. It's highly successful and it's really, really fun. There's an entire I have Excel spreadsheets for all of you out there who love Excel spreadsheets like me. I have Excel spreadsheets of all the different kinds of touch in each one of the blueprints. And so what we do is we use this 1 to 5 scale, 1 being I didn't like that at all. Please don't do it again. To 2, like I could really live without that, but it's not a 1. 3 being like, that was okay. 4 being like, oh, that was highly pleasurable. And 5 being like, oh my God, yes, please. That if you keep doing that, I'm going to have an orgasm. So having this 1 to 5 scale and then taking all these different kinds of touch and playing with them on different parts of your body and then you just using the 1 to 5 scale. So what I find like sensual blueprint getting stuck in your head and right and not in your body, when we have to formulate words and tell people, "Oh, how does that feel and what do you think?" Oh god, now you're in your brain. We don't want to be in our brains when we're having sex.
Right.
We want to be in our body. And so or I mean, we do like using our brains. So, we use our brains to say 1 to 5. And so it's just as simple as like going through and trying different kinds of touch on different areas of the body and giving it a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And then from there, that really that gives you a map of your body. Oh, she really loves her hair tugged in a certain way, but if I comb her hair, she doesn't like it at all. That's really good information, right? Okay, breathing on the neck versus kissing the neck. Like what's the preference? And of course, all these things can change too, but when you're not used to communicating, this is really valuable information because most of us are not used to communicating what it is that we want, like you said.
Or even knowing there's options.
Yeah, we don't know what's
We don't even know what the
possible.
options are. It's like
Exactly.
going to a restaurant and being like, I don't know, there's not a menu, so I
Right.
just whatever the chef wants is what I'll take.
Right. And you might be like, I did not like that's a 1.
We are not
Right?
coming back here.
Yep. And so the beauty of like what I do is that I have these maps and I have these spreadsheets. And so I have these options. Like I tell you what your options are and I guide you through your options. And, I guide couples with clothes on Zoom to try different kinds of touches out to see to body map, you know, what it is that they like. And I find that it's highly, highly successful.
It also sounds like a fun date night.
It is a fun date night.
Like
Very fun date night. And guess what? You can only you can keep it easy. Like we want easy wins. Like
100%.
like does not
Not
have to
need
be
to be
long.
hard.
No.
We're not writing a
Or
dissertation. No.
hugely time consuming. 15 minutes. Set the timer now. Okay, let's do some energetic touch. Let's do some sensual touch. Yes, it's a perfect date night activity. Absolutely. And it's a communication tool.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think you probably feel more connected to your partner because now you understand what it is that they want when they ask for it, as opposed to being like, wait, can you give me the definition of that? Because I don't really know what that means to you.
And it also comes down to consent too, because
Absolutely.
like I love when I hear like consent is hugely important when it comes to sexuality. I mean, like intimacy, all of this, right? And so, when we talk about consent, like a yes can always become a no, right? A no is always a no until it becomes a yes at some point, right? And a maybe we always treat as a no. And where I'm going with this is that consent, I lost my train of thought because
That's
I
okay.
went through that. I can get it back. Give me a second because it was going to be really good. Really, really good. Yeah. When we hear from our partner what they are consenting to, when we ask our partner for consent and we get their consent and we also hear what their no's are, when we get a no, that means that we can trust their yes.
That's huge.
Huge, because when we get a no, that means this is my boundary and I don't like this. And so you thank your partner. Thank you for this information. Thank you for telling me. And then so when they say, oh, yes, I like this, you can trust that yes. Because if everything's a yes and there's no no's, you can't trust your partner. So, for instance, I was in an event and we were doing demonstrations on the erotic blueprints, and it involved touch. And it involved, me touching someone with different tools, not with my hands, but like with different sensation play items, we call them. And I asked him, like, in order for me to trust you, I need to know what your no is. And so I started asking him, so are you okay if I whip you with this? He was like, yes. Okay. Are you okay if if I tell you to take off your clothes? And he was like, yeah, okay. Like he didn't know what his
No was.
no was. And so I kept asking him, I was like, is it okay if I stick this up your butt right now in front of all these people? Well, maybe. Okay. So I kept asking him and he kept saying yes to all these things. And I finally was like, I need a no. Tell me what a no is. And he told me what a no was. And I was like, thank you. Okay, now we can proceed because now I can trust you with your yes and your no and your maybe. Because if you're just saying yes to me on everything, then I don't know what your boundary is. And I don't know when I've hit it or I've crossed it. And like, I don't know what, yeah.
And I think that also sounds a lot like what we do outside of intimacy, right? Is we kind of accept everything. Like, okay, sure. Yeah. Okay, great.
Because we
Sure.
don't know what it is that we're a no to.
Right.
And like for instance, I go to cuddle parties occasionally and we have a dear friend. Do you know Grace?
I don't.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We'll have a conversation about Grace
Okay.
and her cuddle parties because cuddling is a thing. We need human connection. We need human touch. And a cuddle party is a platonic event where you go and you cuddle with people. And it's all about having consent conversations and it's all about communication. It's all about negotiation and it's about a win-win. So the cuddling feels really, really good to both people. And so what I love about going to these cuddle parties is that she makes us practice saying no. Even if it's something that we're a yes to, we practice saying no. So simply, Shawna, can I give you a hug? You'd probably be like, yes, of course, right? And so in this instance, you'd be like, oh, thank you for taking care of yourself is the answer that we give. And so by practicing our no's, it really empowers us and we know what our no's are.
Which sounds a lot like the people pleasing
Mhm.
aspect of it.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
most of us are so,
And
I'm going to
people
say,
pleasing is not intimacy.
no, I think some of us are so desperate to
Yeah.
be accepted that we just say yes to everything because if we say no, then we won't get invited to this thing and then they won't be our friend. It
Yes.
feels like a lot of shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah. I think that's such an interesting topic that we don't talk about very often. Okay. I wanted to ask you because I feel like I hear this come up with a lot of different groups of people that I interact with, whether it's people who are in postpartum, seasons of grief, menopause. I hear that people don't have any desire to be intimate and they feel this guilt because they want to please their partner and they want to have intimacy with their partner, but it doesn't sound good. And it's not for like a week, right? It's not for a month. It's for long seasons. And I mean, I've even experienced this with like not feeling well in my own body. It's like I like don't want to be intimate because I don't feel good in my own body, and bringing someone else into that doesn't feel great. Like I don't need to bring someone into my space because like my space doesn't feel good. I'm not keeping my side of the street clean, not because I'm trying to be, but that's just the season I'm in. I feel like people have so much guilt and shame, and I don't even know what to do because I don't want to be intimate. And how do I keep telling my partner no over and over and over again? Because they want to be intimate with me, and I don't feel like I want to be intimate with them. And it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with me.
Yeah, but I love them and I feel bad because now I feel like I need to do this to please them, and yes, and for all those reasons. Yeah. So one of the important things that I feel that we all need to know and be aware of is that there are different states and stages of our sexuality. And so there is a resting stage where we do not have sex. And like this happens after we've had a baby. And like it's not safe, we're healing
Tissue.
tissue. Yes. A trauma has happened, a car accident's happened, like,
A parent has died.
yes, we're in a season of grief.
Yeah.
Many different reasons. And so realizing that like there is a resting stage and knowing when you're in that and that you're there and then being able to communicate that to your partner. There's a healing stage, where it's like, hey, I'm not quite ready. I have some things that I'm going through, but I still want to be intimate, in a different way. There's the curious stage where you're not trying everything and doing everything, but you're gathering information and you're learning about it. You're learning what you like. You're doing research about, things that you might want. There's the adventurous stage where you're trying all kinds of things out. And then there's the transformational stage where you're like, okay, I am in a different place and space and, transcending, like using this as a transcendence and manifestation, power. And so realizing that you are in what state or stage that you're in. And I'll let you in on another secret.
I love secrets.
Each erotic blueprint that we have, you could be at a different state or stage in each blueprint. So just because you're in resting in one, you could be adventurous in another one. Connecting to intimacy when desire isn't there. The best thing to do is to like take sex off the table and to like redefine what intimacy is, and to also redefine what sex is, and to like expand our definition of sex, because that's what the erotic blueprints do. We think sex equals penetration, right? It does not. Like, yes, it is. And it's all of these other things. And so, really expanding your definition gives you so many more possibilities for intimacy because it doesn't have to look a certain way. There isn't a certain expectation. Taking sex off the table for a period of time and just focusing on pleasure, asking yourself, what would make this moment even more pleasurable? Asking that question changed my life. Asking myself that question on a daily basis, multiple times a day, and then asking my partner that when we're intimate, huge game changer. Taking the focus off of sex and putting it onto pleasure. What would feel really, really, really good right now?
And maybe that's a bath.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Maybe,
listening to music, cuddling.
Mhm.
Maybe that's
maybe that's watching TV.
right, going for a walk.
Yeah, playing with your dog. These are like baby steps as we're in the resting and the healing and the curious states and stages. Expanding into other this is the perfect opportunity to expand into another blueprint, because like I said, we all have all these different blueprints. And so like if you have a sexual partner, this is the perfect time to like start doing some tantra, expose your partner to energetic touch. There are so many different practices and breathing exercises, eye gazing. This is the perfect time to eye gaze, the perfect time to do hand massages, things like that. It's like start with like really easy, simple things. Go through the sex communication checklist. and check off the things that you want to do, that you're willing to do right now in this state and stage that you're in. You
Right.
know, when you just don't feel like it. In having a sexual partner, like I so relate to this because I love him so much. And knowing that like sex is very relaxing and fulfilling to him, and that it makes his whole world and life just better, and he loves me even more. I give him option. I'm like, would you like a hand job? I can give you a blow job. Like, I'm not in for penetration, like I will let you know when I'm ready for penetration, but I would like to play with you in other ways, rubbing his penis on my body. There's so many different ways to engage in sexual activity that don't have to be the way that we think. So, take the things that you're scared of like off the table and know that you don't have to do them, and play in all these other ways that are, like easy, fun, pleasurable, satisfying, like, yes, I know that penetration for my partner is his absolute favorite thing, but he's happy with a blowjob. He's okay if I jack him off. He's all right with that. An orgasm's sometimes, and it's not forever.
Right.
It's not
It's a
forever.
season.
Yeah. Yeah. So knowing like, what blueprint is in what stage really gives you, there's a map.
I didn't ask you this before, but can I ask you, I feel like the other part of this is like where, especially people are in their cycles when they're on their periods, like there are different places and stages that you want to be.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that also
Oh
probably is
yeah.
very similar. Is right now I am in this phase. I really don't want to be touched.
Mhm.
Great. Okay. Right now I'm in this phase. I would love to be touched. And I
Mhm.
think women's bodies especially kind of go through cycles
Yes.
even within a 1 month period of
Most definitely.
this is what I'd like, this is what I wouldn't like based on your hormones, which are something that are fluctuating constantly.
Constantly. Yeah. Yeah. It's communication. Right now, I would really love if you hovered your hands over my breasts instead of touching them because they're really sensitive because I'm
Mm,
at that time in my cycle.
right.
So it's having a lot of body awareness.
Which is when it's helpful to have done body mapping, which is, and maybe
Mhm.
that's helpful to do in different phases of your cycle.
Yes,
That way you have
absolutely.
great data
Mhm.
for yourself and then you have a menu for your partner.
Yes, because it's all about options. Like I love how you said menu. Yeah.
It's a menu.
We want to give them a menu.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because we want to set them up to win. We want to make it
totally.
easy for them.
Totally.
Mhm.
And I feel like if I have a menu, it makes it less mentally, I'm less in my head if I'm like, okay, let me
Yeah.
start thinking of this checklist that I've written maybe once or twice, but now I have to like go back and think about this checklist. And now I have to express that and feel pleasure at the same time.
Mhm.
That makes me feel nauseous. If I'm having to do that all in one space, I'm like, oh, that doesn't, that sounds 0% pleasurable.
Yeah, it
That's a
creates
zero
so
for
much.
me. Yeah. So
Mhm.
if you have this data going into it,
Yeah.
then you can just be like, hey, here you go. Here's the roadmap and let's follow it.
Exactly. And like I said, your yeses can become nos. And so you do your sex communication checklist, 1 month, and, the next week it's different and great. Perfect. Cross those things out. Check other things off.
Right.
Yeah. It's a
Fluid.
continual fluid, absolutely fluid evolution, and expansion.
Well, is there anything else that we haven't chatted about that you wanted to add? No pressure.
Let's see. I think we've covered a lot.
I
Yeah.
agree.
I don't want to overwhelm everybody with too, because like I feel like we did a really good dive in,
Agreed.
and like this is deeper than I usually go on podcasts because it's usually like, oh, half an hour, 45 minutes or an hour, and I think we're longer than that right now.
Yeah. Because why not?
Because we can,
Because we
right?
can.
And which is really awesome because I feel like I've been able to give so much information. And it's also just kind of scratching the surface. Like, there's a reason why I've been doing this for like 10 years
And there's more to learn.
because there's always more to learn, and there's always repetition is really important, and checking in with yourself is really important, and like becoming really, it's like you're learning a new language, and so you need to practice.
Like any
And
language.
so I want to be like the best lover that I can be to myself and with my partner that I can be. And so I just continue to practice, speaking this new language and learning new vocabulary and trying new things out. And so, if any of this resonates with you and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like I want to learn more," please go to my website
Which we'll link.
and
I'll link in bio.
yeah, and if you sign up on my email list, I will send you the link to the quiz, which will go to Jaya's site. and you can take it for free, or you can take the one for $17. I highly recommend it. Like I said, best $17 you'll spend on your sex life, because you'll get a 28-page report that will talk about that. You'll get a 28-page report on your primary blueprint, which will also have the states and stages that I talked about and the obstacles and pathways that I just briefly mentioned. And it also will have like how to play if you're in, like, if, for instance, if you're an energetic and you have a
Yes.
sexual partner, if you have the energetic report, it'll give you ideas on if your partner's a sensual, if your partner's a sexual, if your partner's a shapeshifter, if your partner's a kinky. And so it gives you like practical tools and tips that you can apply immediately. Like, it's easy, it's not complicated. This report is amazing. Like, I refer back to them all the time. I reread them all the time. And like when I was preparing for this, I was like, oh yeah, how have I expanded? What are the
What
big,
shifted for me?
yeah, what shifted for me, and it's like keep going back to this because it explains things in such a clear way that just makes sense. It takes the guesswork out of sex, which we need all the help we can get.
Right.
We
Agreed.
don't want to guess. No, no, no guessing anymore.
No, thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing. I will put Laurie's website in the show notes. She's also on Instagram, so there's lots of ways for you to connect with her. So thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Authentically Shawna with Dr. Shawna Burke. The information contained in this podcast is provided for information purposes only and is not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products or techniques referenced in this podcast, consult your healthcare provider. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.